The boy gave his lunch to a poor grandpa in the alley. But what he received the next day, it was supposed to be just another skipped lunch, one more day of hunger traded for pride. But what happened in that alley changed a life forever. Noah Ramsey, 16, knew the ache in his stomach like an old friend. It throbbed steadily as he walked past the cafeteria, past the kids laughing over cheeseburgers and fries he couldn't afford. The brown paper bag in his hand, hastily packed by his little sister Lucy that morning, felt heavier than usual. Maybe because she had sneaked in her favorite cookies. Maybe because Noah knew he wouldn't eat any of it. He took a sharp turn down Westbury Alley, the shortcut home he always used. A narrow place few dared to walk, where the buildings leaned too close and the sun barely touched the pavement. And there, in the familiar shadows, he saw him again, the old man, slumped against a dumpster, wrapped in a coat that looked like it belonged in a museum. The grandpa barely moved. His face was carved with time, eyes sunken, beard wild. Yet something in the way he blinked slowly, as if fighting to stay conscious, made Noah stop. He'd seen him before. For weeks now. Always in the same spot. Always alone. Noah hesitated. Then without thinking, without letting guilt or fear or pride stop him, walked up and knelt beside the old man. "I have lunch," Noah said, his voice quiet. The old man turned his head slowly, as if the motion cost him strength. His eyes met Noah's. Brown, cloudy, but filled with something that cut deeper than words: shame. Noah placed the bag beside him. "It's nothing special. A sandwich. Some crackers. Cookies, I think." Still, the man said nothing. Noah stood up, shoved his hands in his pockets, and backed away. "It's yours. Take care." Then he left. He didn't wait for thanks. That night, Noah didn't mention it to Lucy or his mom. They had enough to worry about: the rent, the broken heater, the empty fridge. He went to bed with a growling stomach but an odd warmth in his chest. The next morning, Noah's walk to school was colder than usual. Westbury Alley was silent as he passed through. The old man was gone. The empty spot where he usually sat looked even darker than before. But when school ended and Noah returned, the alley greeted him with something he never expected. A small, crumpled note sat where he had left the lunch, folded in half, held down by a stone. With trembling fingers, Noah picked it up and read. "You saw me. No one does. I owe you a story. Come back tomorrow." Noah came back the next day, and the next. Each time, the man was there. Each time, he spoke a little more. "My name's Eli," the old man finally said on the fourth day. "Eli Thompson. Used to teach literature at Galloway High. Long before your time." Noah blinked. "You were a teacher?" "Before life taught me instead," Eli replied, voice dry. Every day, Noah brought food, what little he could spare, and Eli brought words. Stories of a wife who died too young, a son who vanished, a war that broke men, a heart that broke itself. Stories Noah never thought someone like him, young, poor, struggling, would understand. But somehow he did. And slowly, the alley transformed. It was no longer just a shortcut home. It became a sacred space, a classroom of life, with two students, one old, one young, each learning from the other. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled in the distance, Eli asked, "Why do you keep coming back, kid?" Noah hesitated, then shrugged. "Because someone should." Eli looked away, silent for a long time. Then he reached into his coat and pulled something out, a dusty envelope, sealed with wax. "I was waiting to give this to someone," he whispered. "But people stopped coming, and I stopped believing." Noah took the envelope with both hands. It was heavier than paper should be. "What is it?" he asked. "My story," Eli said. "The only one that matters. And maybe something more." That night, Noah opened the envelope in his room. Inside was a thick, handwritten manuscript. But at the bottom of the pages, taped to the last sheet, was a key. And a handwritten note. "Apartment 4B. Sunset Arms. It's yours now. I'm leaving soon. I want you to have a roof, a desk, and time. Write your story. Live it. Then pass it on." The next morning, Westbury Alley was empty. Eli was gone. Noah searched for weeks. Checked shelters, hospitals. Nothing. It was like the man had vanished into mist. But apartment 4B was real. Tiny, creaky, warm. And waiting. Noah moved in that month. He didn't tell anyone where it came from. Not his mom, not even Lucy. He told them a stranger had helped. That was all. He kept the manuscript close, rereading Eli's life, the pain, the poetry. And then, one day, he picked up a pen and began to write his own. Noah wrote every night. Not for school, not for praise, just for himself. He wrote in a spiral notebook, in the margins of textbooks, even on napkins when the ideas wouldn't wait. Eli's gift, the tiny apartment above the flower shop on Sunset Street, became his sanctuary. A place where he could breathe, dream, remember. But even as he wrote, questions lingered. Who was Eli really? How did he own an apartment while living in an alley? And why did he choose him, of all people? Noah didn't share the truth with his family. He told his mom the apartment was part of a school program, a scholarship for kids in hardship. She believed him barely. Lucy didn't ask questions. She was just happy they had a place to visit where the heater always worked and there were snacks on the counter. Weeks passed. Noah balanced school and part-time work, lugging groceries at the corner store. He saved what he could, wrote at night, and sometimes sat by the window, staring at the alley below, hoping, somehow, Eli would appear again. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. No stamp. No return address. Just a folded page slid under the door. Noah opened it with trembling fingers. You are doing well. I'm watching. But it's time to meet someone else. Ask for Miriam. The library on Finch Street. 3rd floor. Sunday at noon. The handwriting was unmistakable Eli's. Sunday came too slowly. On the 3rd floor of the old Finch Street library, where the dust floated in sunbeams and the shelves leaned like tired elders, Noah waited. At exactly noon, a woman appeared. Tall, thin, with silver hair wrapped in a bun and sharp eyes that looked like they had read the whole world and still weren't satisfied. You're Noah, she said simply. He nodded. And you're Miriam? She gave a short smile. I was Eli's wife. The words hit him like a stone. Tu thought she died, Noah stammered. She did, Miriam said. And then she didn't. She led him to a private reading room, where the curtains were drawn and a single file rested on the table. You're not the first kid Eli helped, she said, sliding the file toward him. But you might be the last. Noah opened it. Photographs, reports, letters, pages and pages of names, places, stories, orphans, runaways, kids who had been left behind. Eli had found them, talked to them, fed them. Some went to college. Some disappeared. But all had one thing in common. Eli had written about them. Not in newspapers or books, but in a journal, his personal archive of lost children and quiet heroics. He kept track of us, Noah whispered. Miriam nodded. Eli believed in stories. He believed they were stronger than pain, louder than silence, deeper than poverty. He said if a kid has a story, then he has a voice. And if he has a voice, he can survive. Noah looked up. Is he dead? Miriam paused, then said softly, Eli always said death wasn't the end. Only the last chapter. I believe he's just editing the epilogue somewhere. She handed Noah a sealed envelope. This is from him. For you. Noah opened it. You were my last chance to believe in the future. I chose you because you saw men not just with your eyes, but with your heart. You listened. And you gave when you had nothing. That makes you rich in ways the world forgets to measure. Now it's your turn. I'm leaving you the final journal. Add to it. Write your own. Find others. Feed them. Teach them. Believe in them. And when the time comes, vanish too. Let the next kid wonder where you went. That's how stories live forever. Noah stared at the page, eyes wet. Miriam placed a worn leather journal in front of him. The final one. Eli's handwriting stopped halfway through the last page, unfinished. Waiting. Time moved forward. Noah kept writing. He graduated high school, then took community college classes at night. He worked days at the local shelter, organizing supplies, helping kids not much younger than he'd once been. And every Sunday, he returned to Westbury Alley. Sometimes it was empty, sometimes not. He started leaving notes tucked under bricks. You're not alone. There's food at Sunset Arms. Ask for Noah. And one by one, they came. Shivering teens, runaways, quiet girls with bruises, boys too angry to cry. Noah gave them what he had: half his meals, all his time, and every word he could find. He let them sleep on his couch. He taught them how to write their stories, the way Eli had done for him. He filled the leather journal page by page, with poems, letters, confessions, with laughter and rage and redemption. He called it the Alley Diary. And when it was full, he locked it in a wooden box and left it at the Finch Street Library, under Miriam's care. Then he started another. One winter night, 6 years after Eli vanished, Noah sat in a cafe downtown, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. He had grown older, broader, with stubble on his chin and ink stains on his fingers. A young woman approached, her coat damp from the snow, a manila folder clutched in her hand. "Are you Noah Ramsey?" He nodded. "I'm Olivia. I always told you help people like me." Noah smiled gently. "Sit. Tell me your story." By the time Olivia left, an hour later, Noah had a new name in his journal. A new soul to watch over. He walked back to Sunset Arms, the snow crunching beneath his boots. And when he reached the alley, a flicker of movement caught his eye. There, sitting exactly where Eli once sat, was a young boy. 12, maybe. Dirty jacket. Eyes wide with fear. Hugging his knees. Noah didn't speak right away. He simply took out his sandwich and held it out. "Here. It's nothing special," he said. The boy took it slowly, hands trembling. Noah sat beside him, not touching, just close enough. "You got a name?" he asked gently. The boy looked up. "Logan." "Logan," Noah repeated. "You hungry?" A nod. "You got somewhere to go?" A shake of the head. Noah reached into his coat and handed the boy a card. Sunset Arms. Apartment 4B. Ask for Noah. "I used to sit here too," he said softly. "Someone found me. Changed my life." The boy stared at the card. Then at him. "Why are you helping me?" he whispered. Noah smiled, and in his eyes, the flicker of Eli's fire returned. "Because someone should." Noah led Logan back to Sunset Arms that night. The apartment was small, but warm. A place that smelled like books, old paper, and hope. Logan stood silently in the doorway, eyes darting from the cracked walls to the folded blankets on the worn-out couch. "You can stay here as long as you need," Noah said gently, hanging up his coat. "The fridge isn't fancy, but there's food. Showers in there. Towels on the shelf." Logan didn't speak. But when Noah handed him a pair of clean socks and a grilled cheese sandwich, the boy's hands trembled with something more than hunger. "Thank you," Logan whispered, barely audible. That night, Logan fell asleep on the couch while Noah sat at the desk, flipping through pages of his newest journal. Each entry bore a name, a moment, a turning point in a life once headed for nowhere. But as the rain began tapping against the windows, Noah turned back to the beginning Eli's final words. "Pass it on." He stared at them for a long time. Then, picking up his pen, Noah wrote. Logan, age 12. Found in Westbury Alley. Silent. Broken shoes. Heart full of fear. Gave him warmth. Food. Silence. He took the sandwich with both hands like it was sacred. He didn't ask for anything. But he stayed. And that was enough. Over the next few weeks, Logan began to open up, piece by piece. He didn't talk about his parents at first. Just mentioned a shelter that turned him away, and a night spent in a bus terminal where his backpack was stolen. He had run out of places. Noah didn't press. He just listened. Some nights, they sat in silence, eating noodles from chip bowls, watching the world go by through the fogged-up window. Other nights, Noah read to him. He started with simple stories, tales of kids who got second chances, of lost things found. Logan never said much, but he always listened. Eyes wide, shoulders relaxing, ever so slightly. Then one evening, Logan asked, "Was Eli your dad?" Noah shook his head. "No, just someone who saw me when no one else did." "Like you saw me?" "Exactly." Logan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Do you think I could write something?" Noah's eyes lit up. "Absolutely." He handed Logan a fresh page from the journal. The boy held the pen like it might disappear if he wasn't careful. He didn't write much, just 3 lines. "My name is Logan. I don't know where I belong. But maybe this is a start." Noah smiled. It was enough. As winter deepened, Noah found himself becoming something more than a writer. Was a caretaker, a mentor, a friend. He coordinated with Miriam to help other kids like Logan. The library became a quiet refuge. Sunset Arms, a waypoint for lost souls. By spring, there were 2 girls, both 15, from opposite sides of town. A boy named Marcus, 17, quiet and tall, who had been couch surfing since his stepdad threw him out. And Lena, barely 13, sharp-eyed and suspicious of everyone but Logan. Each of them came through that alley, drawn by Noah's quiet notes and steady presence. He never turned anyone away. He couldn't. One night, after they had all gone to sleep, Noah stood in the alley alone. The stars were barely visible behind the city glow. He looked up, remembering Eli's beard, his tired voice, the stories he told. "I get it now," Noah whispered. "You weren't saving lives. You were planting seeds." He closed his eyes and felt the night breathe. He was no longer the boy who had given his lunch away. He was becoming something else. A few months later, Noah received a letter reel this time, with a stamp and return address from New York. It was from one of Eli's former students, now a literature professor. She had received Eli's journal from Miriam and had read every word. Her letter read, "What you're doing gets rare. Not just kindness, but legacy. We're putting together a collection of Eli's impact. We'd like your writing to be part of it. And if you're willing, we want to meet the kids. The new voices. The ones you're guiding." Noah read the letter 3 times. Then he called Logan into the room. "You're going to help me teach a workshop," he said. "Me?" Logan blinked. "Yeah," Noah said with a grin. "You're the first story in the next book." By the time summer rolled around, things had changed. Noah was now leading community storytelling groups in the park. He was still broke most weeks, still stretching groceries, still writing late into the night. But he wasn't alone. The kids helped. They grew, each in their own way. Lena began drawing her stories bright, Wild's sketches full of fire and tears. Marcus spoke little, but when he did, his poetry stunned rooms into silence. The two girls started a podcast, Stories from the Alley, where they shared anonymous letters written by runaway teens, giving voice to what the world often ignored. And Logan? He became a writer. He filled his first notebook in 2 months. Then another. Then another. One day, he handed Noah a leather-bound journal, smaller than Eli's, but just as heavy with heart. "I finished it," Logan said. "It's mine now, but I want someone else to read it. Someone like me, like I was." Noah took it with both hands. "I know exactly who," he said. The next morning, Noah walked to Finch Street Library. Miriam was waiting. He placed Logan's journal on her desk. "Add it to the shelf," he said. She nodded, tears brimming. Then she asked, "And what will you do now?" Noah thought for a moment. Then he said, "Keep listening. Keep writing. Keep leaving sandwiches in alleyways." And as he turned to go, she called after him, "You're doing exactly what Eli hoped." He didn't respond. He just smiled and walked back into the world, ready for the next lost voice to find its way home. Noah had never imagined his life would revolve around forgotten alleys, used notebooks, and teenagers who didn't know how to say, "Help me," out loud. But that was exactly what it had become, a patchwork life sewn together by quiet moments, soft gestures, and the kind of bravery that never makes headlines. That summer, the city began to change too. Word spread widely, subtly, that something was happening on Sunset Street. Not through headlines or social media posts, but through whispers. A school janitor who told a student where to find a safe place. A nurse who slipped a handwritten note into a cast. A diner waitress who slid an extra sandwich into a paper bag, along with an address. Ask for Noah. Noah started keeping a small whiteboard by the door. It read, "If you're cold, come in. If you're hungry, help yourself. If you need to be seen, I'm here." Below it, a growing collection of names was scribbled in different handwriting, first names only. Logan, Marcus, Lena, Mia, Joe. Each name was a story. Each story a world. One morning, Noah was woken by the sound of soft sobbing. He opened his eyes to find Lena curled on the rug, arms wrapped tightly around her knees, her face hidden behind strands of tangled hair. Noah slipped down beside her without a word. They sat in silence for a long time. Then, in a trembling voice, Lena whispered, "My mom used to braid my hair. Every morning. Then one day she just stopped. And I didn't ask why. I thought if I didn't ask, she'd start again." Noah's throat tightened. "And did she?" Lena shook her head. Noah placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You never needed to ask. You were enough, Lena. You always were." It wasn't about braids. It never really was. The emotional weight of so many young lives became heavier with each passing month. But for Noah, it wasn't a burden, it was purpose. And that purpose came with a quiet rhythm. Meals. Late-night talks. Pages filled with ink and pain and hope. But life doesn't move in perfect arcs. It crashes. And one fall evening, the crash came. Logan didn't come home. At first, Noah thought it was nothing. Maybe he went to the library. Maybe he was out clearing his head. But by midnight, the worry bloomed. He texted, called, walked to every street corner, checked the alley, the bench by the bakery, the back entrance of the school. Nothing. He woke Marcus, and together they searched the neighborhood. Finally, as dawn touched the edge of the sky, a voice called from the stairwell. "Noah." It was Mia, one of the newer kids, breathless and pale. "Someone's at the door." Noah rushed downstairs. And there he was, Logan. Blood on his shirt. a bruise forming on his cheek. His arm shaking so badly he could barely hold the journal pressed to his chest. "I went back," he said, voice hoarse, "to my dad's place. I thought maybe you'd want to talk. Maybe it'd be different." Noah didn't speak, just reached out and pulled the boy into his chest. Logan's knees gave out, and together they sank to the floor. Later, after he had eaten and cleaned up, Logan sat by the window, staring into the rising sun. "I thought he'd be better," he said, "that maybe I'd changed enough for him to see me." Noah knelt beside him. "Logan, changing yourself doesn't guarantee people will change with you. Some people they don't want to see. Doesn't mean you're not worth seeing." Logan turned his head slowly. "I left my first journal there. On purpose. Thought maybe he'd read it and finally understand." Noah looked at him, heart heavy. "And did he?" Logan nodded once. "He burned it." Silence fell over the room like snow. But Logan didn't cry. Instead, he reached into his backpack and pulled out a fresh notebook. "Guess I'll just write it again," he whispered. Noah nodded. That's what writers do. Weeks passed, and Logan wasn't the only one changing. Marcus began tutoring a middle school boy in algebra. Mia enrolled in GED classes. Lena submitted one of her comics to a local zine and got accepted. The apartment buzzed with a new kind of energy, not survival, but growth. One night, they held a small gathering in the alley, candles and mason jars, borrowed chairs, thermoses of cocoa. Each kid read a passage from their journals to a circle of strangers, listeners, survivors. Noah spoke last. He read from Eli's original manuscript, a passage that had always stayed with him. "Some people think stories are entertainment. I say they're architecture. The world collapses without them." As he read, Miriam stood at the back of the crowd, hands folded, eyes misty. She smiled at him like a proud guardian. Afterward, she approached and placed a thin book in his hands. It was bound in soft brown paper, the title handwritten. The Alley Diary, Volume 1. He stared at her. "You published it?" She nodded. "With help from the university. It's being placed in every city library." Noah's chest tightened. "But they're just kids' stories." "They're voices," Miriam said, "and the world needs them." Soon after, an unexpected invitation arrived. Noah was asked to speak at a national youth literacy conference in Chicago. Expenses paid. Keynote spot. He nearly said no. But Lena punched his arm and said, "You have to go. You owe Eli." Marcus added, "Tell them the truth. Not the polished version. The real one." "And Logan?" He handed Noah a note that simply read, "Be the voice for the ones who are still quiet." So he went. The auditorium was massive. Hundreds of people, bright lights, big names. Noah stood on stage in a simple shirt, holding Eli's leather journal in one hand and Logan's new one in the other. He didn't have a speech prepared. He didn't need one. "I used to think I had nothing to offer," he began. "I didn't have money, or connections, or answers. But I had one sandwich, and I gave it away." A murmur ran through the crowd. "That sandwich led me to a man named Eli Thompson who taught me the power of seeing someone. And since then, I've been passing that power on." He held up the journals. "These books aren't full of fiction. They're full of truth. Hard truth. From kids who survived foster homes, silence, street corners, fists, and fear. And they're still here. Writing, living, becoming." Applause began softly, then rose, thunderous. As he left the stage, a woman stopped him in the wings. She was crying. "My son ran away last year," she said. I think he might have found you. His name's Cole. He wrote us a letter. He talked about the boy with the notebook." "Was that you?" Noah's heart paused. He nodded. "Cole's okay. He's writing, actually. I'll make sure he calls." When he returned home, the apartment felt brighter. Logan ran to him. "You were amazing. We watched the live stream." Lena cried. Lena rolled her eyes, but her face flushed pink. And on the table was a new edition, an envelope addressed to Mr. Ramsey. Inside was a check. Enough to expand. Enough to build something real. Noah stared at it, then looked up at the kids gathered around him. "I think it's time," he said. "Time for what?" Mia asked. Noah smiled. "To build the alley." The idea of the alley wasn't just a dream anymore. Noah began the groundwork immediately. He met with city officials, pitched the vision to local donors, and worked late into the night with Miriam and Logan by his side. The goal wasn't to build a shelter, not in the traditional sense. It wasn't just about beds and meals. It was about stories, about restoring identity and voice to those who had been silenced. He envisioned a space with bookshelves instead of bunk beds, writing desks instead of cots, journals instead of intake forms. A creative refuge. A healing ground. He called it the Alley Center for Youth Voices. The city reluctantly approved a permit. A few grants came through. And just like Eli had once done for him, strangers began showing up with folded checks and quiet encouragement. A retired carpenter offered to help renovate the old laundromat on 9th Street, a building with rusted pipes and rotting floorboards, but good bones like the kids it was meant for. Marcus took charge of organizing volunteers. Logan designed the logo. Mia started a GoFundMe campaign. Lena painted a mural of a rising sun surrounded by open books and mismatched shoes, a tribute to everyone who had ever walked into the alley and been seen. The first day of demolition, Noah stood outside the building and looked up at the faded sign above the door, Clean City Laundromat. He whispered, "Not anymore." 6 months later, the alley opened its doors. It was small but warm. Wood-paneled walls. A reading loft tucked into the back. A row of desks with writing supplies. A couch patched with tape but full of stories. There were shelves of second-hand books, all donated, some signed by authors who'd read about the project and wanted to contribute. But what made the place come alive were the journals, over 100, each one handwritten by a teenager who had passed through Noah's care. Some were anonymous. Some had names on the cover in big, bold marker. Some were wrapped in string like fragile treasures. They were all kept on the center shelf, protected, respected, read with reverence. That first week, dozens of kids showed up. They came hungry, but not just for food. They came for something deeper, to be heard, to matter. Noah made sure each of them left with a journal and a pen. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled across the city, Noah found Logan sitting cross-legged by the window, staring down at a blank page. "Stuck?" Noah asked gently. Logan didn't look up. Not stuck. Just afraid. Afraid of what? Logan finally turned. His voice was low. "What if my story doesn't matter?" Noah sat beside him. "It does. But what if it's not enough to change anything?" Noah thought for a moment, then said, "Your story doesn't need to change the world. Just one person. That's all it takes." He paused, then smiled. "You changed mine." Weeks turned into months. The alley grew. Some kids came for a few nights. Some stayed for years. Some returned, older and stronger, just to say thank you. Others disappeared into the world, carrying journals like armor, letters like lifelines. One day, a girl named Bree arrived with a fresh bruise on her face and nothing but a plastic bag of clothes. She didn't speak for 2 days. Then, on the 3rd day, she handed Noah a folded note that said, "My name is Bree. My mom thinks I'm trash, but I think I'm more than that. Please don't tell me I'm wrong." Noah didn't. He gave her a notebook. And 3 months later, she stood up during the alley's first open mic night and read her poem. "They said I was invisible, but I kept screaming on paper until someone finally heard." When she finished, the entire room rose to their feet. Then came the day Noah never expected. He received a letter, hand-delivered, addressed to Mr. Ramsey, guardian of voices. Inside was a court document. Nomination for the National Human Dignity Award. He stared at it, stunned. At the bottom, a note in familiar handwriting. "This world is loud with noise, but you helped others find their song. That matters more than most things ever will. Miriam." Noah wept. Not out of pride, but out of memory. He thought of the old alley, the brown paper bag, Eli's beard, the key, the journal, the boys and girls who once felt like broken glass. He thought of the first time he saw Logan holding a sandwich like it was gold. And he remembered what it felt like to be hungry not just for food, but for worth. A year passed. The alley had now welcomed over 400 teenagers. Dozens had moved on to jobs, schools, even mentorship roles. The place had grown. A second building was in the works. A community garden was planted behind the main center. A podcastron by former residents was gaining national attention. But still, Noah refused to call himself a hero. He was just a boy who had once chosen to give instead of eat. Then, one summer morning, Logan came rushing into the center holding a newspaper. "Noah," he shouted. "Look!" On the front page was a headline. "From Alley to Legacy, the story of one boy's sandwich that changed a city." There was a photo of the alley, kids sitting on the steps, books in their hands, journals on their laps. And in the bottom right corner, a photo of Noah. He looked older than he felt. Beneath the photo, the article ended with a quote. "I didn't save them," Noah had said. "They saved themselves. I just held the door open." He folded the paper, eyes full. Logan grinned. "You made it, man." Noah shook his head, smiling. "We made it." And as if the universe were listening, a soft knock came at the front door. A boy stood there barefoot, small, dirt-smudged, with wide, fearful eyes. He held nothing but a torn hoodie and a trembling voice. "I heard this place helps kids," he mumbled. Noah stepped forward, heart already open. "What's your name?" he asked. The boy hesitated. "Eli." Noah froze. For just a second, time folded in on itself. He saw the old man in the alley. The sandwich. The journal. The seed. He blinked back the flood in his chest. "Well, Eli," he said, voice soft. "You came to the right place." And he handed him a notebook. The new Eli was only 10 years old. He didn't talk much at first, didn't eat unless no one was watching, and slept curled up with one arm over his backpack like someone might steal it in the night. But Noah recognized the signs that guarded silence, the bruises he wouldn't explain, the way his eyes stayed close to the floor. They didn't force questions on him. They just gave him a journal. That journal sat untouched for 5 days. On the 6th, Noah found it open on the desk with 4 small words written inside, barely legible. "Is it safe here?" Noah replied in the margin beneath it. "It is now." The alley became more than a sanctuary. It became a movement. Noah's team expanded. Former residents Logan, Mia, Lena, Marcus became full-time staff. They created programs, built a mentorship network, partnered with schools and shelters. Word spread through buses, through train stations, through whispered messages passed between kids in the corners of foster homes. "If you're lost, find the alley." A foundation reached out, offering funding to open another center in the next city. Noah hesitated, wondering if they were growing too fast. But Miriam said, "The story doesn't end because the chapter gets long. It just means you've got more to tell." And so, they opened the alley branch too in the neighboring district. Then a third. Each one carried a mural of Eli painted from memory, not photograph. He sat with a journal in hand, eyes kind, behind him a trail of rising stars. One quiet night, Logan sat with Noah on the rooftop of the original Sunset Arms apartment. They looked down at the lit windows of the alley center, where kids were laughing, writing, leaning against walls and sharing truths that once lived only in shadows. "You ever think about how weird it all is?" Logan asked. "I mean, it started with a sandwich." Noah chuckled. "Not just a sandwich. A decision." Logan nodded slowly. "Yeah, you decided to see him." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind. Then Logan asked, "Do you ever think about where he went?" "Eli, I mean, every day," Noah admitted. "Some part of me still hopes he'll come walking down the alley again one morning, like nothing ever happened." "Would you ask him why he left?" Noah shook his head. "No. I think he left because he knew I'd find something. Maybe something he couldn't." Logan glanced sideways. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're Eli now." Noah's heart caught in his chest. "No," he said softly. "I'm just the next page." 3 years later, Noah stood in front of a packed audience at the International Human Dignity Summit in Washington, D.C. He wore a simple suit, no tie, and held in his hand a single worn object, Eli's journal. Behind him was a projected image of the alley's mural Eli and the stars, the journal, the alley wall. He began. "Once, I was a boy with a sandwich and nothing else. No future, no plan, just hunger. I gave that sandwich away, and in return, I was given a story. Not a fairy tale. A true story. About pain. About love. About being seen." He told them about the alley, about the note under a rock, about Eli, about the key taped to a manuscript. He told them about Logan, about Lena, Marcus, Mia, Bree, Cole, Eli, the younger, about every soul that walked through their doors. And then he closed with this. "We think giving means losing something. But when you give to someone who has nothing, you don't lose. You multiply. That's what stories do. They echo, they ripple, and if we let them, they rebuild everything." The applause lasted for minutes. Afterward, a man in a tailored suit approached Noah backstage. "I run an international education initiative," he said. "We've got centers in 12 countries. I want the alley to go global." Noah blinked. "That's enormous." The man smiled. "So is what you've done." A few weeks later, back at home, Noah received a small package in the mail. No return address, just his name on the label. Inside, a notebook. It was Eli's handwriting, but it wasn't the journal he had left Noah. This was new. Just one entry. I knew you'd do it, kid. I watched the stars real close. And when one burned brighter than the rest, I knew it was you. Stories never die. They just pass on their pen. Noah pressed the page to his chest. He never found out who had sent it. Maybe Miriam. Maybe someone else from Eli's past. Maybe Eli himself. But it didn't matter. What mattered was the message. And what came next? 10 years passed. The alley became a national organization. 17 centers. Hundreds of staff. Tens of thousands of stories. Logan ran the West Coast division. Mia was now a published author. Lena became a professional graphic novelist. Marcus led education initiatives in juvenile facilities. And Noe stayed close to where it began, managing the heart of the operation from Sunset Street. He still visited the alley often, the exact spot where he once knelt before a broken old man. There was a small plaque there now. It read, "In memory of Eli Thompson, who taught us that one act of kindness can rewrite an entire life." And below it, in smaller print, "If you're hungry, there's food. If you're cold, there's warmth. If you're lost, there's a story waiting for you." As for Noah, one evening, a young man showed up at the door. Backpack slung low, calloused hands, scared eyes. "I heard there's this place that helps kids," he mumbled. Noah now in his late 30s, but still carrying the same quiet, calm smile gently. "You came to the right place." He handed the boy a journal. The boy clutched it like it was the first thing in years that was truly his. "Why do you give these out?" he asked. Noah leaned down and said, "Because someone once gave me one." And that night, in the small apartment above the alley, Noah opened a fresh leather notebook and began to write again. It began with a sandwich. But what I received the next day was a reason to live. The end.